guess it is just going to be the three of us today. I know I got posted everything a little bit late, but I was really thinking about what I wanted to do, and last night it kind of hit me, and I had this really brilliant idea to make this super pretty, but I did as best as I could this morning. I think it looks decent, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. So today is the cycle of a transaction. Like, when do certain things happen whenever you're selling a piece of real estate, and who does it? So obviously I have to paint very broad strokes with this because every real estate transaction is very unique. Different things come up, different things that you have to do. But this should give you a pretty good broad overview of when things should happen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen so everybody can see. Can y'all see my beautiful little slideshow here?
Yep. Yes.
Oh wait, which side are you seeing right now?
Slide 1 of 1.
Yeah, that's not what you need to see. So where's my mouse? Let's retry this one more time. I'm gonna do stop that. And we're gonna do this one more time with just this. All right, does everybody just see a big wide open road?
Yep.
Or do you still see slide of 101?
Current slide 1 of 1 with the open road.
That is gonna drive me crazy.
Okay, look. Well.
This is gonna be fun to edit out while I try and figure this out. Actually, let's do this. Let's try it this way. All right, how about now? Do you just see a big long road?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. So the cycle of the real estate transaction, it is a long and arduous road. And lots of things happen as they go through it. Like, again, one more time, guys, this is very broad strokes, but it should give you a pretty good idea. The first and foremost is there's basically 3 players in this game. There are 3 main players that we need to take care of. And I'm going to have to start over again because y'all can still see. Oh, my goodness. Sorry, one moment. Because I want that gone, because otherwise we can't see what I'm trying to do here. All right, one last time. Okay, so there is basically 3 main people that are going to be involved in your transaction. It's going to be the lender, you, and the title company. There can be additional people that come into play with this, but these are the 3 main players. And we'll talk about some of the other people that kind of come into play, but they all basically roll around this. And we all have our own lane that we need to stay in. Unfortunately, as the realtor, I was trying to think of what colors to use, and I thought red, white, and blue was pretty appropriate because, you know, if you're thinking about the American flag or the Texas flag or whatever it is, you know, the white's always the peace part of it. Like, we are peaceful people, and that is our job as the realtor, is to keep everybody happy. The lender, the red is always like battle something or other. And guys, that is whenever there's a fire, and the title company just kind of goes with the flow. So I thought that was kind of appropriate with the colors. So first and foremost, guys, I'm going to be covering both buying and selling because the transaction's kind of here, but there are some unique things. The first thing that you need to do, the first step, if you are buying for somebody, if you are helping somebody buy a house, is to get them pre-qualified. I know a lot of transactions, you will actually work both sides. I'm going to help you sell this, and I'm going to help you buy the next one. Before you even put their house on the market, you need to make sure they pre-qualify and that the lender knows that. So that is without a doubt step 1, is find the money. Everything in the transaction rolls around money. That's why they're red. I mean, if something happens with the money, it is going to be a fire sale. So a fire movement, like, you've got to get off your butt and go fix something. So once you get them pre-qualified, that is when you can either shop for houses or start listing houses. Y'all know all the processes in shopping for houses, how to set up on MLS searches, how to do all that great stuff. But that is going to be step 1, is once you get them pre-qualified, then we're going to shop and or list the house. Again, if you're listing, there's a lot of steps involved with listing, and there's separate presentations about getting the photos, getting the measurements, all that stuff's on a previous video, but that's going to be step 2 in our process. So get them pre-qualified, get them shopping. Next thing is the contract. So during the process of listing or shopping, you're going to look at a lot of different houses, pros and cons. Once you list your house, you're going to have a lot of people coming through looking at the house. But there's the hard part about this, guys, is this is not going to be a real accurate timeline. It's not to scale on the time. It's mostly just the order of operations. So the next thing is, guys, is the house will get under contract. If you are listing the house, the minute you have an executed contract, you need to go into the MLS and change it. MLS is really cracking down on that. If they find out that you've had a contract that's been an active option for 5 days and you haven't changed it, they are fining people for that. And it's really, really, really frustrating. So, but once you have that executed contract, guys, you need to share that with the lender and the title company. The reason why you need to share it with the lender is the lender cannot complete their process until they are done, until they have a subject property. So they pre-qualify or pre-approve, whichever way they go about doing it, but they can't start the lending process until they have a subject property in question. So you have to, once you get that contract receipted or executed, excuse me, you need to share it to the lender, and you also need to share it with the title company, guys. You got to share it with them as well, because they need to know what's going on to start working with the title. Next part in this, guys. Can that move forward? Oh yeah, you're going to get your receipted contract from title. So you execute it, but once you send it to title, they will have a receipt. They will sign that last page of the contract receipting it for you. Once you do that, you need to make sure everybody has the receipted contract as well. Now, why am I not moving forward? There we go. After you have that receipted contract, you start a timer, which everybody should be very familiar with this timer, and it tends to be a 3-day timer. It's definitely 3 days for the earnest money. The option money is a little bit variable depending on how you want to do that, but it's 3 days. And what is important is, if you notice, that you need to make sure that the option money goes to your seller, and it will be your responsibility to receipt that option money. So once they receive that, the very last page of the contract has a receipt. Yes, I got my $100 on this day, check number, whatever. That's on you. But the earnest money goes to the title company. The title company holds the earnest money, and it's on them to receipt that earnest money. So from the day the contract is signed, within 3 days, we should have 3 different lines on that receipted side of the contract. But I think it's the last page or second to last page that are going to be receipted. There is one receipt that may or may not be filled out. Again, every transaction is unique. If there's additional earnest money, that'll be the 4th receipt, but most of the time people don't do that. So once you've gotten everybody the receipted contract, the lender starts to pre-underwrite the loan. That means they're going to start putting together that loan packet for your buyer to get the money that they need. They may be calling, asking for questions. This is usually out of your realm unless they have a hard time getting a hold of your client, but that's pretty much all them. Now, during your option period, most option periods are 10 days. You can make them as long or as short as you want. I've seen them as short as 3 days. I've seen them as long as 2 months on a traditional real estate transaction. So during that option period, you need to hire an inspector and get that house inspected. There are general inspectors, there's septic tank inspectors, there's whatever it is. But you've got 10 days basically to get all your inspections done on that house, because if you remember, the option period is when I get to back out. So if I see something I don't like, I get to back out. Now, all inspections are going to come up with something that's wrong with the property. And once you have that, you have a chance to amend the contract. That contract is not set in stone yet. During the option period, you can amend it. There are different ways to amend the property. You can ask for a reduction in price. You can ask for them to fix things. I just had one, I thought it was really interesting. The inspector saw that there was hail damage. He goes, hey, can you make a phone call? Well, that's what we asked. I said, hey, can you make a phone call to your insurance company and get us a new roof? And sure enough, they did it. So there's all kinds of different things that you can do during the amendment process. Now, once the amendment happens, oh, by the way, guys, you can amend the option period as well. So you can amend the option period and make it longer. That's why this isn't really a true dated item. But once that option period is over, you need to go back into the MLS and change the status to pending. Depending on which MLS you use, there's pending, and then there's a pending SB, which basically means that you're taking backup offers if you are feeling real insecure about the one that you have. Next, a good lender will order the appraisal during the option period, especially right now. If the contract falls apart, they will know to cancel it. Most of them will order the appraisal once we know the contract is locked in, and the contract is not locked in until the option period ends. So as soon as that option period ends, then the lender will order the appraisal. It is their responsibility to order that appraisal. However, it's probably on you to poke them and say, hey, did you order that appraisal? Right now, in our current climate, appraisals are what are holding deals up more than anything else I've seen. The rates being as low as they are, everybody's trying to refinance their house. Appraisers are getting their butts kicked right now. So it's going to be kind of on you to go, hey, did you order that appraisal? Normally, I don't mess with them too much during the option period. But as soon as that option period's over, I'm going to pick up the phone or shoot off an email saying, hey, did you order that appraisal? Because that will hold up this transaction. Now, sometime in the middle of this, again, like I said, this isn't real time dependent on this. Sometimes in the middle of this, the title company is going to issue a title commitment. Now, we have videos over the title commitment and what to look for, but once they issue that, it kind of comes back to you. And you need to review that title commitment to see if there's any problems for them to fix. Now, it is not the title company's job to fix title issues, unless it's something very, very specific that they can. It's kind of going to be on you and your seller or buyer or whomever to do the research and get title what they need. And this is also a very good time to review the appraisal. Once the appraisal happens, it's usually pretty quick that you get the appraisal back. Usually within a day or so. It's a good time to sit down and review both of those. Once the option period ends, the realtor's tasks kind of slow down pretty big. I don't know if any of y'all have experienced that, but once your option period ends, you kind of sit around and twiddle your thumbs because everybody else is doing something. And the reason why I wanted to put everything in here is to remind you of what should be happening. Now, after the option period as well, there should be a survey ordered if it is needed. Some transactions, people already have a survey and there's a T47. If that's the case, you should have turned that in at the very beginning. If they need to order a survey, they tend to wait until after the option period, because if you order a survey and the contract falls apart, somebody's paying the survey. It's the same thing with the appraisal. That's why most people wait till the option period ends. But that somewhere in there needs to be a survey ordered. So check your contract. And after the option period, guys, you need to make sure the appraisal's ordered and you need to make sure that the survey's ordered. Because if not, you're going to be waiting and it's going to slow your transaction down. Once the appraisal comes in, the lender should have done everything they need to pre-underwrite the loan. Underwrite literally means just to check to make sure these people qualify. So once they have the appraisal in their hand, they should have all of the documents showing their ability to repay, their money amount, the money that they have, everything. And they should have already verified employment, all of that good stuff. They send it to the bank that's actually going to do the lending, and they will underwrite it. Okay. That means it's going to, underwriters, I'll say this again, I mean, I don't like them. They're the most miserable people on the face of the earth. I understand the necessity for them, but man, are they picky. And so right after underwriting, or sometime in this time period, the title company may produce something called a HUD-1. And a HUD-1 is kind of a general idea of where the money is going to go. So if you're selling, it's kind of a good idea of how much money they're going to walk away with. If they're buying, it's going to give you a good idea of how much money that they need to bring to closing. One way or the other, that HUD-1 is going to come out. It's not the final disclosure, guys. It's not the end all be all, but it is definitely something that you need to keep an eye out for. You can request it pretty much at any time. The title company may or may not pop one out real quick, but it's going to be something that you're going to want to be looking for. After that HUD-1 comes out, or sometime right during underwriting, something scary is going to happen. I put this in here on purpose. Something scary will happen. Every transaction I've ever done, all of a sudden the lender or the title company or somebody's going to call you with some sort of like, oh my God, there's a problem. Stay calm. There's always a problem. It's only what was Sonic the Hedgehog? I love having kids because I get to watch all these fun movies again.
Oh, there's one.
Right? You remember when Jim Carrey goes, "Wow, that was unexpected, but I was expecting something to be unexpected, so I'm ready for it." Guys, this is your unexpected time. This is when the curveball is going to happen. All you need to do is communicate with whoever said the scary thing. If the lender said something scary, you need to communicate with the lender. If the title company said something scary, hey, what's going on? Oh my God, we found out that there's actually some other guy that's named something, something that has whatever. Figure it out, work down the thing. But it's going to happen during underwriting. And it's usually the lender. Okay. The lender is going to come back and say something. Oh my God, we called up there and their boss said that they're on probation or some, God only knows. Okay. Something's going to happen in underwriting. Oh my God, I can't help but notice that they checked the box on the application form. Who cares? Fix the application, send it back in. Okay. Now, after that, something scary happens. As we get closer and closer to closing, there is something that is required by federal law called closing disclosures, and they must, no questions asked, be issued 3 days before closing. So if you've already set up your closing date, which on the contract, we have a closing date. I have a contract right now that's supposed to close December 21st. On December 21st, we're supposed to close. That doesn't mean jack if these closing disclosures do not come out on the 18th. If I don't have these closing disclosures on the 18th, we're not closing on the 21st. So pay attention. Pay attention. Have something in your calendar reminding you. What's up, Joey?
Do you, as an agent, get CC'd whenever the client gets the closing disclosure?
Sometimes. It depends on the lender.
Okay.
It depends on the lender. So, should you? Yes. But you need to make sure you're asking that question 3 days before. Did you send the closing disclosures? Can you send me a copy? You should get CC'd on one. The only reason I think you wouldn't is if the actual client asked you not to get it, which they have to abide by client request. However, it would be foolish because you're used to looking at these things and you're going to want to look at it here and you're going to want to look at it again when we get to the closing table to make sure that they match.
Okay.
So that's got to come out. Now, once again, something scary is going to happen. Okay. This time it's probably going to be title. I don't know what it is, but something scary. Oh my God, we can't close because fill in the blank. Most of the time it can be fixed fairly easy. If it cannot be fixed easily, then you need to be prepared to move your closing date. It's not that big of a deal. Now, if you have a double-sided transaction where you're selling one house to buy another one, it complicates it a little bit. But guys, 100% of problems are problems of communication. You just got to communicate it all the way through. So talk to whoever had the problem, talk to your client, talk to your other client on the other side, talk to the other realtor, talk to everybody that you can talk to saying, hey, look, here's what happened. We got to push closing back a few days. I don't know why, guys. I wish I could tell you that everything ran smoothly. I can't think of a single transaction. Something scary didn't happen right at the very end. Now, the next one is the attorney. Sometime in this time period, guys, most of the time title company does it after the closing disclosures, which I think is pushing the envelope. They should do it before. Some do, some don't. But title companies are looking, they do like, they're like middle schoolers. They wait till like the papers due the next day and then they freak out, try and get it all done. So one of the things that title does is they will have their attorney draft up the documents. What the documents consist of depend on your transaction. You know, they'll do the deed, they'll do the, if it's an owner finance, they'll do the vendor's lien, and they'll do the promissory note or whatever. But somewhere in here, the attorneys are drafting documents. If you know for a fact that the attorneys need to draft documents, I would make sure that I'd keep a copy of this presentation and ask, hey, have y'all drawn up fill in the blank? If there's some weird component to your thing, make sure that they're doing this before the closing disclosures are sent out. I put it at this point in the presentation because that's when they tend to do it. They tend to do it right before closing. Next up is sometime after the closing disclosures have been sent. Usually it's the same day, if not the next day. The lending packet is sent to the title company. This is something you really need to stay on as a realtor. Hey, did you send the lending packet to the title company? Because when you sit down to buy a house and you're signing papers for an hour and a half, about 80 minutes of that hour and a half are lending documents. So those documents need to get to title so we're not looking for them later. So make sure that that gets done. It's not your responsibility to do it, but you do have to kind of be mom about it and go like, hey, did you do your homework? And make sure they send it in. The next part is scheduling the closing. What time, where, what are we bringing, all of that good stuff. Guys, you can close in an attorney's office, you can close at the title company, wherever it might be, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you can close with mobile notaries, it doesn't matter, but you need to schedule it. Hey, are we meeting at 3 o'clock on Friday? Right? Make sure you know it, make sure it's in everybody's calendar. Make sure your clients understand that they have to bring some sort of documentation. Make sure that there's a notary. You know, if you're closing at a title company, that's going to suffice, right? They're going to have notaries on staff. But if you're mobile, you know, if you're doing something mobile or an attorney's office, you got to make sure all that stuff is there to schedule the closing and that everybody's on the same page. That's why all of that's coming in at the exact same time. Title's got to have their paperwork, lender's got to have their paperwork, and you've got to be ready to go all at the same time. And then you go in and you sit down and you close on the loan. Oh, there's something I forgot. I forgot to put it in here. I knew I was going to forget something. Sometime before you schedule the closing, you need to have your commission disbursement in there. You need to put your commission disbursement in there, because if you don't put your commission disbursement, you're not going to get paid till after closing. I like to walk away with a check. So after you close and after all the money trades hands, we've got the house and we're good to go. So what'd y'all think of my wonderful transaction, real estate cycle transaction? Any questions, comments? Does this help? Because I know a lot of times I get sideways of like, wait, where are we at? Who are we doing? What's going on? So that's why I wanted to do this today, because it's almost self-serving, because I wanted to make sure I was thinking everything I could possibly think about. So hopefully this will help you as well.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
On where the scheduled the closing. So is that on, do we actually do that or the title company? Because this may be a little bit different of how this transaction went, because it was just a cash sell, but the title company actually called me on this last transaction to schedule the closing. Is that normal? Or
it doesn't matter who schedules it, but I'm telling you right now, it's like dealing with a middle schooler. Like somebody, where are we doing this? Because most of the time, I'm telling you, title companies are notorious. And it's, I don't mean to throw them under the bus, but they've got 10 closings a day, right? I mean, they're trying to figure out themselves. So you need to remind them, hey, have we scheduled this? Now, the title company, if they're proactive, yeah, they're going to call you. Hey, we've got all our documentation in. When are we doing this? Can your client be here at 4? That's great.
okay, that's what they did. Yeah.
And I will be honest, the lender is not going to be at the closing. Your client will be at the closing and the title escrow officer will be at closing. Those are the only 2 people that have to be there, or 3 if you've got a couple buying, right? But you don't have to be there. You don't have to. Now, it's polite. I think that's going to be good for you, because they're going to be scared. They're not going to know what they're signing. You're going to want to take your copy of the closing disclosures and sit down and help them look at it to make sure nothing changed. Has that ever happened? It happens way more than you think. Okay. Make sure everything lines up. And if they have questions about the documents that they're signing, walk them through it. So who schedules it? Technically title, but you're probably going to have to remind them to schedule it, because you can't schedule the title's time. You can't go, hey, we're going to be there at 4. Well, I'm on vacation that day. Well, you know what I mean? It's that's going to happen. So technically title should schedule it. You need to stay on their butts about it.
And I have one more question. From the beginning of, or the start of, like once you put your buyer, whatever, you have a contract going, how do you determine the closing date based on all of this stuff? How do you determine, like, is there a typical number on days?
You know, typically you want to have at least 30 days. If you're dealing with a true loan package, like if you're dealing with somebody who's buying a house cash, I usually schedule it for 14 days, because I need time for the title company to get the title cleared for me. So I've seen them close in as few as 4 days. I think it's the fastest I've ever seen one close. I've seen some of them been dragged out. I personally, my first house I bought got dragged out to almost 90 days.
Yeah, my
Because
sister is selling her house right now. They're actually putting in a like release of funds or whatever because it's been over 3 months, and the lender keeps coming up with more things. Like they just found out that the buyer had a property that they were getting money from, but they didn't find that out like in the beginning. They just now found it out, and so it's just a huge mess. So my sister's like, you know what, I'm done with this buyer. So it's been over 3 months.
yeah, and that can happen.
Ugh.
Mine was kind of a long issue. I had an FHA issue. I was commission based at the time. They had a lot of problems, figuring out my income. There was just a lot going on. Oh, and then halfway through, the guy who's selling it died. I mean, it was just this
Oh,
ordeal.
yeah,
Yeah,
this
and
is a
so
VA loan, so
yeah, so this was an ordeal, but remember, you can amend the closing date. Both parties, you can't come in and say, I'm moving the closing date. Both parties, the buyer and the seller, have to be okay with it. So if you're dealing with somebody that you think is going to have some issues, and you should know that because you talked to them in pre-qualification, you should talk to your lender. Hey, you think we're good for 30 days? Do I need to push it to 45 days? Do you need some extra time? You need to be very communicative in that process because every buyer is a little bit different. Most of the time, if you get to day 27 and you're like, hey, I need an extra week, the seller is going to be like, man, I'm already in this far. If not, I have to start all over and it's another 30 days. 90% of the time, it's not a problem. Every now and then you'll get somebody that's just like, nope. And if you can't close on the day you put in that contract, you're going to lose your buyer's earnest money. And you're going to have a lot of mud on your face. So talk to the lender before you submit your contract. Ask them if they think 30 days is going to be enough time. And the lender's going to be very aware of that because they're doing a lot of loans. And they know for a fact that appraisers are, 30 days out. So they may say, no, I'm going to order the appraiser tomorrow and put it for 45 days because these guys suck right now, right? I mean, you just got to talk with what's going on. Typically, it's 30 days. If I haven't had a chance to talk to the lender, I'll put 45 days. But you also have to remember the longer you put the closing date, the less attractive your offer is. So if you're in a multiple offer situation, you're probably going to want to talk to that lender.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Zagla. Any questions? I know you got here about halfway through. Any other questions? Kim, any questions? Kim, Joey, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Oh my God, this just means I'm the most excellent teacher ever. I love when I don't have questions. The only thing I forgot to put in there was that I can see right now, which I'll probably see something as soon as we get done with this, is to send in your commission disbursement. Make sure all your paperwork's in there. So I'm probably going to put that in there as well. But
I didn't know that. It was my first transaction. I didn't know that. And then the title company called me and said, oh, hey, we have your check ready. And anyway, I was kind of confused, and they sent me the thing that shows like the amount. And I was like, oh crap, like the transaction fee that goes to y'all. I was like, hold on a minute, how does that happen? I didn't like understand, like, how did that process happen? And so Eric was like, well, did you send them the form? And I'm like, the form? What form? And so anyway, I had to send it back to the title company, and then they like reissued another check. It was kind of a mess for them, but now I know. So
yeah, I will say this about commissions. Title companies make a lot of assumptions. They do, like I said, 10 closings a day. Let's just pretend. Out of those 10 closings, every single one of them is a 3% commission cut to the title or cut to the broker, not to you. So our CDAs are a little bit different. That's why you need to get it in. We don't want them to send the entire check to us. We just want them to send our split of it. And we want them to send the other check to you because that's less checks for us to write. It streamlines the whole process. They're not used to that. Another thing that you got to double and triple check is if you have some sort of bonus in there, let's say it's 3% plus $1,000 because you're selling a new build or something, right? Make sure they do that because they get in the habit of just pushing 3%. I'm actually buying a house right now for a client and the commission is 2.8%. Like, who does that? But I caught it and I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention to make sure, because guess what happens if the closing disclosures, we get to the closing table and all of a sudden they realize that 0.2% commission is not right. And then guess we got to stop the whole train, back up and start the 3 days over again. I just lost 3 days on closing because I wasn't paying attention. So that's just another thing to, like I said, you just got to pay attention to all the paperwork. But this was more meant of like, hey, here's the timeline, and here's what everybody should be doing.
So when I know you said you're going to put it in here, but when would you send that to title, that form?
It's going to be right when closing disclosures are submitted. That's my cue. That's when I need to, like when I see the closing disclosures at my table, that day I'm trying to get my commission disbursement in.
Okay. So, okay.
Because that gives me a little bit of time. Okay. Gives me a little bit of time. Now, when you get those closing disclosures, once again, if you're getting a flat 3%, then great, fine, whatever, it should be right. But that's the perfect time for you to check to make sure that your commission is the right amount. So that's where it all goes. Like, hey, I'm supposed to get 3% plus $1,000. Is that right on this piece of paper? Great. I'm going to send in my CDA. I'm going to make sure all my paperwork's in the Google Drive folder. You know what I mean? And we're going to get ready to go, because that gives me, Eric, and Ryan 3 days to sign your paperwork. Because if we don't sign it, then they're not going to do it anyway. So closing disclosures is kind of my cue.
Okay. Thank you.